Hi, and welcome to Crypto Chats, a podcast that explores cryptids, alien encounters, and ghost stories. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Crypto Chats. So this week I actually put a poll out on my Instagram and you all voted for what you wanted to hear me talk about. So we're going to do the Spectre Moose of Maine. Now for total transparency, the Spectre Moose of Maine is just a giant white moose. And white moose are not technically really a cryptid, they're just really, really rare. But there are some aspects of the Spectre Moose that make it cryptid-like. So I think it's still kind of important to talk about. So let's get into it. So the very first sighting of the Spectre Moose of Maine happened in 1891. Which was at this point a million years ago, but that's okay. So it was spotted in around Lobster Lake, which is very close to the top. Well, it's not close to the top of Maine. It's like kind of in the middle, but like towards the top. It's really far up there though. It's like around the same area as the Allagash waterways where the Allagash alien abduction happened. So it's like in that general area. But Lobster Lake, so there was a hunting guide who was out and he spotted a giant white moose. He couldn't get close enough to take a shot at it because, he was a hunting guide, but he could see the animal very easily. And what he described was a giant white moose that was about 15 feet tall, and he estimated around 2,500 pounds. Now, the average moose is about 6 feet tall and weighing around 8 to 900 pounds. So clearly, this one was significantly bigger than the average moose, like by a lot. And moose are already pretty scary, so I can only imagine a 15-foot tall moose would probably be a thing of nightmares. So basically, this hunting guide went out and he told a bunch of people what he saw. And a lot of people laughed it off, as people tend to do in these situations. And then, he was kind of like mocked for this crazy sighting until other people started to see it too, which is always how it goes. People think it's stupid until you run into it yourself. So basically, a few months later, it was spotted again, once again in the Lobster Lake region, and then a few more times that year. But the most important, well, I guess not important, but the most interesting, I guess I'll say, sighting from that year was he was spotted by another hunter who fired several shots at the animal directly and supposedly hitting it, which the moose didn't even acknowledge the shots, and it didn't show any signs of being hit. It didn't recoil from the injury. It showed no signs of pain, and it also did not have any obvious bullet wounds or blood or anything, which on an animal that's all white would be incredibly easy to see. So that's kind of crazy. And according to the hunter, the only reaction that the Spectre Moose had to him shooting at it was that it got really pissed off, which is fair, and it charged at him, and this man hid in a bear cave for about an hour before the moose finally went away and he was safe to leave the cave. So, that's fucking scary. I don't know if you've never seen a moose, just hope that you never will because they're fucking terrifying. They're huge and they're mean and they're angry and they just want flesh as far as I'm concerned. I've seen a moose. I've lived in New England my entire life and I have seen quite a few moose and it's been really I don't know, you get an immediate sense of danger when you see them. They're just so big and they're so obviously angry. You can just look at them and tell that they're mad. They're picture a horse, but I don't know, a horse that's fucking furious and has really big antlers. They're just really mean. I don't know. I can't really explain what it's like to run into a moose unless you have also felt it, because it's a type of terror that you can't describe. So all of that happened in 1891. It was a crazy year for the Spectre Moose, but it just kind of got crazier after that because it was seen again in 1892 a handful of times, and then it kind of disappeared for a little bit, and then it popped up again in 1895, and then again in 1899. And every time it popped up, there were a lot of sightings of it, and a lot of people tried to kill it, to no avail. And I don't know why. I feel like maybe after the first time that somebody tried to kill it, they probably should have been like, oh, well, maybe we can't kill this thing. But they kept trying. So that's something, I guess. And in 1899, there was a hunter that got close enough to count the amount of points on each side of its antlers. Now, the average moose has about 8 to 12 points on each side, and that's like a pretty standard amount. Obviously, younger moose are going to have less. Older moose should usually have more, unless they've been in like weird hunting accidents or whatever. Anyway, the Spectre Moose had 22 points on each side. So not only was it twice the size of a normal moose, but it also had massive fucking antlers. Literally just like a fucking white moose demon straight out of hell, as far as I'm concerned. That's terrifying. But, again, you got this hunter that got close enough to be able to count that, and just like everybody else, he shot the creature. This time he shot it 5 times. But at this point, the moose didn't even acknowledge it, didn't get mad or anything, and literally just walked away. Which is fucking weird. I love this moose. This may be the only moose that, well, no, I'm not going to say it's the only one I'm not afraid of, because I am afraid of it. But I respect this moose a little bit more than most. So the moose was seen again by handfuls of people every year until about 1938. And then it kind of just disappeared for a little bit, which is weird to me because that doesn't seem like that's what should happen. But I don't know. I don't really, I'm scared enough of moose that I don't really study them as well as I should. So it's also not super unusual to not see moose unless like you're actively out hunting them, because they are very elusive and like to hide. So I guess it's not so unrealistic. I still don't like it though. Anyway, there is a really bizarre story that it's about the Spectre Moose, and it kind of like I don't really know how to explain it. I'm just gonna tell you guys. So I don't know the exact year, but there is a tale of a hunter killing this white moose, the Spectre Moose, and setting it up, hanging it from a tree, like slit its throat, got it ready to be skinned the next day, which is gross, but important to the story. Because keep in mind, they slit its throat and like hung it up, and it was like very dead. The next morning they went outside and saw that the moose was gone. And there were no, traces of the moose ever have been being there. So like no blood on the ground. There was like no moose hair anywhere. Like, the rope that they had hung it up with was gone. Just nothing was there. And then, so it gets weirder though, because these people then reported that later that night they saw the white Spectre Moose walk into their camp with its throat still cut. The hunters shot at it again, and this time they this is so weird. It's like two things I hate more than anything, like moose and zombies. So they shot it dead again. They killed it for the second time, and the moose just kind of laid there for a few minutes, and then eventually it got up and walked back into the woods, and they were like, okay, well, fuck that, and did not try to kill it again, which I think is very fair. So then, it just gets worse. So then, the Spectre Moose, with its throat still slit open, appeared in another area near Ashland, Maine, to another hunter who shot at the moose, and this time it had no effect on it. It did not die again and then get up. This time it just didn't even acknowledge that it was shot at. And this guy was like, you know what? fuck this. He dropped his rifle, he ran into his house, and then he reported that from inside, he watched the moose pick up the rifle with its teeth, fire it, and then run back into the woods. I'll be honest, that's scary. That's very scary, and I don't like it. I really don't like moose. I really don't like zombies. When you put them together, it is the worst case scenario for me. That's horrifying. Can you imagine if you came across a 15-foot moose in the woods that had its throat slit and now it has a gun too? That's like, I don't know, that's very suspect to me. So in my research, I did find a couple stories of the Spectre Moose being like a good pal to people who were in a bind. There was a story about a couple whose horse died while they were in the woods. You know, they were going for a ride, and their horse just kind of died, and the Spectre Moose showed up and gave them a ride back to town. And that's nice. That's really pleasant and all. But the Spectre Moose is kind of now just like a staple in folklore in Maine. It's like a very well-known local legend in Maine now. And at this point, it's believed to be nothing more than a bad omen, which is great. I think most weird cryptids end up becoming sort of a bad omen, like, but I mean, I guess, like, it's tied very much in with, like, misfortune and tragedy and sometimes even death. So people are seeing this white moose and then experiencing some serious hardship. So it's kind of just been tacked all together as this thing is bad, which I guess is fair. I mean, if I saw a moose that was 15 feet tall, all white, with like a slit throat, like walking towards me like nothing was wrong, I would probably assume something bad was going to happen. And you know what's funny is now I work in Maine, and I work at a gas station, and at night, when I have no customers, I'll go outside and, like, you know, read on my phone or something, just get some fresh air. And I constantly just, like, look around, being like, where are the cryptids tonight? And I'm genuinely waiting for the day when, like, a giant moose walks out of the woods, because I think that would be really on brand for the weird liminal space that I work in. The gas station I work at is also haunted. I feel like that's just worth putting up there, because, I don't know, I feel like this weird moose, this weird undead zombie moose, would maybe really appreciate my haunted gas station. Anyway, so you can see a little bit why I kind of prefaced it by being like, this white moose might not necessarily be a cryptid. There are white moose in nature. Whether they're albino or just have like a really like specific recessive trait. Because that is a thing. White moose are super fucking rare, but they do exist. Another explanation for a moose that's white could be ticks. Like, there are some kinds of ticks that can make, if they have like an infestation, they can look like they're white because there's so many ticks on them, which is disgusting, and I hope that is not ever the case. But that, you know, like, doesn't really explain the fact that it's like more than twice the size of a normal moose, and has twice the amount of points on its antlers, and also, like, keeps coming back to life after everyone shoots it. So, you know, it is what it is. It's not ridiculous to think that there may be a few white moose running around, but there's like one big boy that's just like king of the Spectre Mooses. Moose. I don't know what the plural for moose is. I think it might just be moose. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know if you guys have noticed that by now. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I'm afraid of moose. They're very scary. One that's twice the size of a normal one and undead is a nightmare to me. That's nothing I want in my life. If you ever go to Maine, just like, I mean, be careful of moose in general because they're mean, but like, be careful of this one too, because now it has a gun, and I mean, it's been quite a few years since anyone has seen it last. At least what I could find. I mean, if anyone's seen it recently, they haven't talked about it on the internet. But, I mean, maybe he's moved on. Maybe he's in Canada now. You know, it's not unrealistic to think he could have gone off into Canada. Regardless, beware. Beware of the Spectre Moose of Maine because he's scary. Anyway, that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate you guys all voting and choosing this week's topic. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And a quick Patreon shout out to my friend Akatuch. And my Patreon is in my bio if you guys want to subscribe. There's a lot of cool stuff happening on there, including investigation notes and a detailed retelling of our recent investigation into wood devils, and a bunch of other stuff on there too. So definitely check it out. The link is in the description of this week's video. And yeah, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next week. Bye!